Commander Aaron Voss stepped from his sleek Terran shuttle onto the polished marble of the Alarian capital's Grand Plaza. His uniform was crisp white, trimmed in silver, and his boots echoed softly as he walked. A gentle breeze carried the scent of alien blooms, painting the air with sweet and spicy notes. He paused to take it all in, a city of shining spires and floating gardens, unlike anything on Earth. At the end of the plaza, two tall figures in iridescent robes waited. One bowed deeply. "Welcome, Commander Voss," said Elder Maris, his voice calm but warm. "We are honored by your presence." Aaron inclined his head politely. "Thank you," he replied in clear Alarian common. He had learned the language by heart during the long journey. "I am eager to learn and to share Earth's own knowledge." The elder's eyes glowed faintly. "Then follow me," he said. Inside the palace, high ceilings arched over walls of living crystal. Soft lights traced the outlines of ancient symbols. Aaron felt like he had stepped into a dream. A small escort led him down a corridor, through doors that whispered shut behind him. Finally, they reached the cloning chamber. Alarian scientists in sleek lab coats gathered around a clear pod. Inside floated a slender figure, her skin pale silver like polished metal. She looked exactly like the image Aaron had seen in his files. The clone of Princess Cyrilith, created to test human-alien bonds. The clone's eyes were closed, her long hair drifting in the liquid. Elder Maris smiled. "This is Lyra," he announced. "She carries the same mind and memory as our princess, but she is new to the world. Today we test the bond of two species." Aaron's heart quickened. He had trained for years for this moment. Humans and Alarians had long eyed each other with caution. Now, they hoped he could bridge the gap. He nodded. "I understand." A scientist tapped a control panel. The pod's liquid drained, and Lyra emerged, supported by gentle mechanical arms. She stood on the gleaming floor, blinking at the light. Aaron took a small step forward, offering his hand. "I am Aaron Voss," he said softly. Lyra studied him with wide, curious eyes. She reached out and touched his hand, her skin cool and smooth. A spark of energy passed between them. Nothing like magic, more like two minds recognizing each other. Aaron felt a flood of respect for this gentle being. Behind them, the council watched in silent awe. The bond ritual was simple. A touch, a shared breath. Yet Aaron sensed something powerful in that moment. He felt hope stirring in the assembly. If a human and a clone could form this link, perhaps the future held peace and progress. As Lyra stepped back into the embrace of her guardians, Aaron bowed his head. He felt the weight of his role settle on his shoulders. This mission was more than diplomacy or science. It could reshape the fate of two worlds. Outside, the twin suns of Alaria set in a brilliant blaze. Aaron looked up, determination shining in his eyes. He would do everything he could to honor the trust placed in him, and to show that humanity could shine as brightly as any star. Behind closed doors in a secret wing of the palace, Commander Aaron Voss entered a softly lit laboratory. The air smelled of clean metal and warm oils. Only a few senior Alarian scientists and council members stood by a low platform. On it lay Lyra, the living clone of Princess Cyrilith. Her eyes were closed, as if in a deep sleep. Soft hums of machines filled the room. Elder Maris stepped forward and spoke in measured tones. "Commander Voss, this chamber is where we learn if a human and an Alarian can truly unite. The ritual is simple, a shared breath and a single touch." Aaron nodded. He felt a steady calm in his chest. He had trained for years in cultural rites, but nothing prepared him for this moment. Lyra stirred at the edge of the platform. Her silver skin glowed under pale lights. A gentle robotic arm lifted her until she stood on the smooth floor. She blinked, then focused on Aaron. He offered his hand. She placed her cool palm against his. They looked into each other's eyes. A soft pulse of energy passed between them, like two waves meeting in calm water. The room held its breath as sensors around the pair recorded vital signs. Lyra's heart beat in a steady rhythm. Aaron felt a warmth spread through his body, as if hope itself had weight. After a long moment, Lyra let go and stepped back. A murmur ran through the scientists. One voice whispered, "It works." Another added, "Better than predicted." Within hours, tests confirmed what no one believed possible. Lyra was pregnant. Aelarian science had never seen such swift conception from a bonding ritual. Pregnant. The word echoed in silent halls and busy corridors. Guards paused in their patrols to exchange astonished glances. Palace servants spoke in hushed tones over crystal bowls of fruit. Even the palace physician, known for her calm manner, allowed a small smile. News of the miracle child reached the Council of Nine by midday. Before evening, holoscreens across the capital flashed the astonishing report. The streets filled with citizens seeking more details. Many cheered in hope for unity. Some frowned in fear of change. Aaron walked among them in his white uniform, honored yet uneasy. He met Lyra later in a quiet garden, where twin moons cast soft silver light. Lyra touched her lower belly, still in wonder. "Commander," she said, voice soft, "I feel life growing inside me." Aaron took her hand gently. "This child will be a symbol," he replied, "a symbol of peace between our worlds." Lyra nodded, her large eyes bright with trust. As they looked toward the palace spires, Aaron and Lyra knew their secret experiment had changed everything. The unexpected child promised a future unlike any before. Yet in that promise lay new challenges: jealousy, politics, and the lessons of two very different peoples. Together, they would face them all. Princess Seralith glided down the marble hallway, her silver robes trailing like liquid moonlight. She had spent the morning meeting with her advisors on matters of trade and defense. Now she expected routine reports. Instead, she found a hush among the palace staff. Guards lowered their eyes. Servants leaned together in small clusters, whispering. Something unusual had occurred. She reached the grand laboratory doors and paused. Through the crystal panes she saw Lyra, the clone who looked exactly like her, standing beside Commander Aaron Voss. The human's arm was wrapped around Lyra's shoulders in a gentle protective gesture. Lyra gazed up at him with bright eyes. At that moment, Seralith understood the truth. Lyra carried life inside her. Her breath caught. Memories of her own royal right rushed back. The ancient ceremony meant only for Aelarian heirs. She forced her face calm, then stepped inside with regal authority. All eyes turned to her. Aaron bowed deeply. Lyra curtsied. "Your Highness," Aaron said, voice steady. "I bring news from the chamber." He held up a report. Seralith took it, scanning lines of text. "Lyra is pregnant," the scientists confirmed. Seralith's heart pounded. A wave of shock washed through her. This child was the first of its kind, a half-human, half-Aelarian hybrid. Seralith felt pride for her people's scientific success. But that pride mingled with something she did not expect. A sharp twist of jealousy and wounded honor. Lyra was her clone, her mirror. Yet Lyra carried Aaron's child, something Seralith had never wished for herself. She pressed her lips together and lifted her chin. "Explain," she said, voice cold. The council members and lead scientists nodded, then spoke in careful harmony. They described the ritual, the immediate conception, the child's rapid development. They praised the unity this miracle could bring between Earth and Aelaria. Seralith listened, expression unreadable. She thought of her duties: protect the royal line, uphold Aelarian traditions, guide her people toward a bright future. Still, she could not ignore the personal sting of seeing a human male father her clone's child before she herself experienced the rite. In that moment, her duty and her heart clashed. Aaron stepped forward. "Princess," he began, "I meant to honor both our worlds with this bond. Lyra's pregnancy proves what we hoped. Humans and Aelarians can unite in peace and life." Seralith's gaze snapped to Aaron. She saw sincerity in his eyes. and felt an undeniable pull of curiosity. Despite her pride, she wanted to know how it felt, this bond that sparked life so quickly. She swallowed hard, steadying herself. "Thank you, Commander," she said softly. Then louder, "Guards, ensure this chamber remains secure. No one leaves until I decide." Her voice left no room for argument. As the doors closed behind the scientists, Sarilith turned back to Erin and Lyra. Beneath her regal poise, her mind raced with questions. Could the right that binds life also bind her heart to a human? In the tense silence, only the hum of hidden machines marked the passing seconds. Sarilith's eyes shone with determined curiosity. She would demand answers, and perhaps more. The future of two worlds and her own destiny hung in that quiet moment. Across the lofty halls of the Aelarian palace, uneasy whispers swirled like autumn leaves. The news of Lyra's pregnancy had split the nobility into two sharp camps. In the gilded council chamber, voices rose in heated debate. On one side stood Lord Venelor and his supporters. They saw Lyra's child as a miracle, proof that humans and Aelarians could join in true harmony. "This child is our bridge to a stronger future," Venelor declared, his voice firm. He pointed to a crystal table where images of Earth floated in delicate holo. "With this bond, our peoples will share knowledge, art, and hope." Opposing them was Lady Renala, draped in robes of midnight blue. She tapped her slender fingers on the council bench. "This is an abomination," she snapped. "Our princess's clone should not bear a human hair. It defies our ancient rights and offends our traditions." Her supporters nodded, faces tight with fear of change. Commander Aaron Voss listened from the gallery, his uniform crisp but his expression troubled. As ambassador, he had expected caution but not outrage so fierce. He bowed respectfully to the council and spoke in measured tones. "I understand your concerns, yet this bond was meant to unite, not divide. Let us focus on peace and learning, not on fear." Some nobles glared. Others exchanged hopeful glances. The chamber's tension was a living thing, uneasy and unpredictable. Outside the council, the palace staff felt the strain. Guards paced the marble corridors, unsure whether to greet Erin with honor or suspicion. Servants spoke in hushed tones about secret meetings and hidden letters. Rumors said Renala's faction planned to demand Lyra's removal from the palace. Meanwhile, Lyra herself struggled with news of the political storm. In the privacy of her chamber, she touched her growing belly and closed her eyes. At first she had thrilled at being proof of unity. Now she felt fear and doubt. Was she a tool for peace, or a threat to her own people? Her silver hair fell around her shoulders as she bowed her head in quiet prayer to the twin moons of Aelaria. Erin found her there, seated by a tall window overlooking floating gardens. He knelt beside her and offered a small crystal vial of calming elixir. "They speak of you as a symbol," he said softly. "But you are more than that. You are a person with hopes and fears." Lyra took his hand, drawing strength from his gentle presence. At the same time, Princess Sarilith observed from her private gallery. She watched Lyra and Erin together, noting Lyra's unsteady laughter and Erin's steady kindness. Sarilith felt a pang of guilt for locking the chamber door. She realized that the clone carried more than science. She carried genuine life and emotion. Sarilith's envy twisted into compassion as she saw Lyra's quiet courage. That evening, as the palace bells tolled under the fading sun, Erin was summoned back to the council. With Lyra's hand resting on his arm, he rose to face both support and scorn. Ahead lay a path of political danger, but also the chance to prove that unity could triumph over fear. In the hush before his speech, he drew a steady breath, determined to carry hope into the storm. Princess Sarilith waited in her private solarium, the silver light of Aelaria's twin moons filtering through tall crystal windows. Her heart still raced from the morning's council meeting. She felt pride in her people's wonder, but she also felt a sharp edge of envy. Lyra, her own clone, carried Commander Aaron Voss's child, and Sarilith had yet to share that bond. A quiet resolve settled in her chest. She would demand what was rightfully hers. She left the solarium without servants or guards. Her footsteps echoed in empty halls until she reached the royal gardens, where Erin often walked with Lyra. She found him alone, studying the pink and violet petals of a floating orchid. He looked up, surprised to see her so soon. "Commander Voss," Seralith said, her voice calm but firm. "I require your presence for the ancient rite." Erin straightened. "Your Highness." He glanced at the closed garden doors, then back at her. "Are you certain?" Seralith held his gaze. "Lyra gave life to your child with a simple touch. I am the true heir of the throne. I demand the same ceremony." Erin's eyes widened. He bowed his head in respect. "Princess, I did not expect this request." "I am your equal here," Seralith replied. "Do not question my will. Prepare the chamber. Tonight, we perform the bonding ritual." He hesitated, torn between duty and concern. "But Princess, the council may object." "Then let them." Seralith interrupted. "This is my command." Her robes whispered as she turned away. "Return when all is ready." Alone in the fading light, Erin bowed again. He knew he could not refuse a royal order. Gently, he laid a hand on his heart and whispered, "As you wish." Then he hurried back to the palace to summon the healing priests and royal healers. By dusk, the grand cloning chamber had been transformed. Warm lanterns glowed softly along the vaulted walls. Silken cushions lined the polished marble floor. At the center stood an ornate dais, its surface etched with the ancient symbols of life. Lyra arrived first, her face pale with anxiety. She knelt beside the dais and offered silent support to her princess. Seralith entered in a gown of deep midnight blue. She moved with steady grace and a hint of nervous energy. Erin followed, dressed in ceremonial white. He bowed to Seralith, then to the assembly of priests. The room fell silent. "Princess," Erin said, voice low, "if you wish to proceed." He offered his hand. Seralith stepped forward and placed her cool palm against his. Her eyes closed as she breathed in the shared life force. A gentle warmth spread between them, lifting any lingering fear. Around them, soft crystalline chimes marked each pulse of energy. When the moment passed, Seralith opened her eyes, glowing with quiet triumph. She released Erin's hand and stood tall. "It is done," she announced. "I feel it already." Lyra rose and embraced her sister, tears of joy in her eyes. Erin watched both women with deep respect. In that chamber, under the watchful glow of Illyria's moons, two bonds had formed, one scientific, one royal. And with them, a new chapter began for both worlds. The morning after Seralith's rite, the palace buzzed with activity. In the grand hall, dozens of Illyrian healers and priests gathered around a long table. They spoke in low tones as they reviewed scrolls of ancient rites and fresh data from the recent ceremony. Seralith stood at the head of the table, her robes gleaming silver blue. She studied the notes carefully. "Lyra's bond was swift," said High Priestess Forel, her voice calm. "But we must adapt the ritual for you, Your Highness. Your body and mind must be in perfect harmony." She pointed to symbols drawn on soft parchment. "These steps will help you channel the life force safely." Erin Voss watched from the side. His uniform was pressed and bright, but fatigue showed in the line of his shoulders. He had returned to Earth reports and then come back at Seralith's request. Now he trained alongside her. Each morning, he practiced breathing exercises taught by the priests. He learned to still his mind and focus on gentle energy flows. Outside the healing chamber, Lyra moved through the floating gardens. She had grown close to her creator and her sister. Each day, she found Seralith in a quiet corner, offering whispered advice. "Breathe with the moonlight," Lyra would say. "Feel it rise in you like a tide." Seralith nodded, grateful for Lyra's gentle guidance. Meanwhile, in the corridors, rumors spread. Lady Rhinala's faction spoke of tradition and honor. They sent letters to the nobility warning of rash acts. Some nobles began to question the princess's choices. Others felt hope for a new future. Aaron found himself answering questions from worried ambassadors. He spoke with honesty. "This bond is more than ceremony," he told them. "It is a promise of unity. It must be done with care." By late afternoon, Serelith joined Aaron for physical training in the palace courtyard. Soldiers formed a circle around them, but kept a respectful distance. Aaron demonstrated simple earth exercises, slow stretches and balanced stances, to help Serelith build strength and focus. She moved with elegant precision, her steps as sure as a dancer's. He offered gentle corrections. "Relax your shoulders," he said. "Let your mind flow as you move." After exercise, Serelith and Aaron sat on a marble bench under a canopy of hanging lilies. The warm breeze carried the scent of white blossoms. Aaron handed her a cup of cooling tea. She took a slow sip and closed her eyes. "I feel steady," she said, "but also restless. I need to know what comes next." Aaron placed a firm hand on her arm. "Soon," he replied. "The healers will prepare the next chamber. They will guide us both." As the twin moons rose, the palace lanterns glowed. Serelith walked alone to a balcony overlooking the capital. She gazed at the floating gardens and the distant spires. In her heart, she felt a mix of pride and fear. She knew this bond would reshape her life and her people's future. Yet she also felt hope that the next rite would bring even stronger unity between Earth and Illyria. Below her, the city hummed with expectation. In every household, citizens whispered of the princess's courage. And high above, Serelith took a steady breath, readying herself for the next step in their journey toward a shared destiny. Under the pale light of the twin moons, the great cloning chamber transformed into a sacred hall. Silver lanterns hung from the high arches, casting soft pools of light on crystal pillars. The air was warm and calm. Serelith stood on the ornate dais, dressed in flowing white robes that glimmered like starlight. At her side, Commander Aaron Voss wore ceremonial attire, simple yet dignified, a white tunic edged with silver thread. High Priestess Vorel raised her hands and spoke an ancient Illyrian chant. Her voice echoed through the hall, layering gentle harmonies over the hum of hidden machines. The gathered council members and royal guests fell silent, eyes fixed on the central pair. Lyra watched from a side alcove, her silver skin glowing faintly as she offered a steady smile of support. Aaron bowed to Serelith. He then reached out, offering his palm. Serelith placed her hand in his, her touch firm but trembling with anticipation. As their fingers met, a ripple of energy swept through the chamber. It was not magic, but the life force all Illyrians shared, an energy they wove into art, healing, and now, into creation itself. Serelith closed her eyes and breathed in unison with Aaron. She felt his steady heartbeat, his calm breath, and matched it with her own. The High Priestess's chant rose in tempo, guiding their rhythm. Around them, floating glyphs of light traced ancient symbols in the air. Each symbol pulsed once, then twice, as the bond deepened. Aaron focused his mind on Serelith's presence, the warmth of her skin, the gentle strength in her grip. Serelith, in turn, felt the steady pulse of Aaron's life force, bridging between human and Illyrian. A soft glow spread from their joined hands, spreading up their arms and into their hearts. The light wrapped them both in a gentle embrace. Seconds passed like hours until, at last, the High Priestess fell silent. The glyphs dissolved into sparkling motes that drifted toward the dais. A hush filled the hall. Slowly, Serelith opened her eyes. Her face shone with wonder and relief. She placed a hand on her lower belly. Even now, she could feel the promise of new life stirring. Aaron gently released her hand and bowed. "Princess," he said, voice steady, "the bond is complete." Serelith smiled, tears of joy in her eyes. "I know," she whispered. "I already feel it." Lyra hurried to her side and supported Serelith as she stepped down from the dais. The chamber erupted in soft applause. Some guests wept at the miracle. Others bowed deeply, overcome with hope. High Priestess Forel raised her staff in blessing. "By this right, two worlds join in life," she proclaimed. "We welcome the princess's child as a gift to all." Outside the chamber doors, the citizens of Illyria waited anxiously. When the doors opened, Serelith and Erin emerged hand in hand, their movements regal yet humble. Lyra followed, offering them each a garland of moonflowers. The crowd cheered, lanterns swinging in unison. Music rose as bands played songs of unity. That night, under a sky of glittering stars, Illyrians and Terrans alike celebrated. In city squares, they danced and sang. In palace gardens, they shared stories of hope. And in the heart of the capital, two mothers, one born of science, one born of tradition, stood together, ready to embrace the future their bond had begun. The morning sun rose over the Illyrian capital, painting the floating gardens in soft gold. The streets hummed with new energy. Citizens gathered to see the princess and her clone. They cheered and waved banners of silver and blue. Many held small portraits of Lyra's child, the Bridgeborn, and of Serelith's own coming heir. Erin Voss walked among them, his heart swelling with pride for both worlds. In the palace, the Council of Nine met again. This time, voices were calmer than before. Lord Venneler spoke first. "The rites have changed our future," he said. "Our people see hope now." He smiled at Serelith, who stood by his side. The princess returned his smile with quiet grace. Lady Renala nodded slowly. She still had doubts, but she had seen the joy in the people's eyes. "Perhaps change is not always a threat," she admitted. "Our customs will grow stronger if we can learn new ways." The other nobles murmured in agreement. Fear had given way to cautious hope. Lyra rested in her private chamber, feeling the gentle life within her. She still felt newness in every breath. The palace healers checked on her each day and noted the steady glow in her eyes. She dressed in soft gowns of pale green that matched the garden leaves. Each morning, she walked among the flowers with Erin at her side. He offered her tea or fresh fruit. They spoke of Earth and Illyria, and of the children they would soon meet. Serelith had a different kind of rest. She moved through the halls with calm purpose. She welcomed ambassadors from far worlds, showing them that Illyria was open and strong. Each new visitor met her with respect. In her eyes, they saw both royal dignity and gentle kindness. At night, she practiced her breathing exercises and felt the quiet pulse of life in her own body. She smiled at the thought of her coming child. Outside the palace walls, celebrations grew into a citywide festival. Lanterns swung from every balcony. Musicians played simple songs of peace. Children chased ribbons in the warm air. Humans and Illyrians shared dances and stories. Erin joined the dancers, moving with both human steps and Illyrian grace. Lyra laughed as she spun in slow circles, her silver hair catching the lantern light. Serelith watched them, her heart warm with sisterly love. Yet in quiet corners, some still whispered doubts. Could two worlds truly stay united? Would new challenges test their bond? Erin knew that unity was more than ceremony. It was work, day by day. He wrote reports to Earth commanders, asking for more cultural exchanges and shared projects. He asked Illyrian scholars to study human art and music. He believed that true trust grew from friendship. By the week's end, the festival waned, but the change remained. The palace gates stayed open a little longer each day. Visitors arrived to learn about both worlds. A small school began teaching Illyrian children the basics of Earth languages. Lyra and Serelith agreed to fund a new library that would hold texts from both civilizations. As two moons rose side by side, the princess, the clone, and the human stood together on the palace balcony. They looked out at the city, now alive with shared hope. In that soft light, they felt the promise of a future built on two hearts and two lives, and they knew their journey together had only just begun. Dawn broke over the Illyrian capital with a soft golden glow. In the royal birthing wing, Lyra lay on a low crystal bed, surrounded by gentle healers. Her silver hair was tied back, and her face was calm but focused. The room smelled of warm herbs and clean water. Outside, Aaron Voss stood just beyond the veiled doors, his heart pounding with hope and pride. Aelarian midwives in pale gowns moved like dancers around Lyra. They spoke in quiet chords of encouragement. "Breathe with the light," one whispered. Lyra followed each instruction, drawing in slow, steady breaths. Aaron watched through a clear side panel, his hand resting against the glass as if to give strength. He knew this child would stand for two worlds. After long hours, Lyra gasped and then smiled as a soft cry filled the room. The healers held a tiny form wrapped in silver-green cloth. The baby's skin shimmered faintly, and its eyes opened to the new world in a curious blink. Lyra reached out a trembling hand to touch her child's small cheek. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "Welcome, Bridgeborn." At that moment, news spread across the palace by gentle chime. Messengers carried the first announcement. The bridge between human and Aelarian life had been born. Palace guards lowered their weapons and joined in celebrations. Outside, servants draped the balconies with lanterns of white and teal. Citizens paused in their morning routines to smile at the joyful news. Just 3 days later, a second birth began in a nearby Aureate suite. Princess Cerilith lay on a soft dais surrounded by her closest attendants. She wore simple robes of pale blue and held Aaron's hand. He knelt beside her, offering quiet support. The room was stiller than the birthing wing, for this birth was watched by the Council of Nine itself. Cerilith's labor was swift and sure. She drew on the strength she had built through weeks of training and ritual. With one final breath, she gave a soft cry of triumph and joy. The healers presented a child swaddled in cloth of silver and gold. The baby had her mother's violet eyes and Aaron's strong jawline. Cerilith's face shone as she kissed her daughter's tiny forehead. "You are my legacy," she murmured. Word of the princess's child brought a new wave of celebration. Holo displays across the capital showed the two newborns side by side, Lyra's Bridgeborn and Cerilith's heir. Markets filled with song and dance. Children waved ribbons in the streets. Even Lady Renala visited the birthing wing to offer her congratulations, bowing respectfully to both mothers and the human who had joined them. That evening, under the twin moons, the palace gates opened wide. Families from every district came to see the two new heirs. Aaron stood between Lyra and Cerilith, holding each mother's hand. In that bright courtyard, humanity and Aelaria joined in a single promise: to grow together, to learn from one another, and to protect the fragile new life they had created. And as lanterns swayed in the gentle breeze, the future shone more brightly than any star. 2 seconds, years passed, and the children of Lyra and Cerilith grew under the watchful care of both human and Aelarian mentors. The Bridgeborn, named Kale, displayed both curiosity and compassion. He spent mornings learning Aelarian history in crystal classrooms and afternoons exploring Earth literature through holo records. Princess Cerilith's daughter, Mira, shared her mother's grace and her father's adventurous spark. The two cousins forged a close bond, often playing among the floating gardens at dawn. Commander Aaron Voss had risen to the rank of High Envoy, honored by both Earth and Aelaria. He stood proudly at the inauguration of the Aelarian-Terran Alliance Council. The new governing body blended representatives from both civilizations, working together to promote trade, culture, and peace across the stars. Aaron placed a hand on the polished crystal podium and looked out at the assembly of diverse faces, humans, Aelarians, and delegates from distant worlds. "Today," he began, voice steady, "we celebrate not only our achievements, but our unity. From a simple touch, 2 lives were born that bridge our peoples. Their futures remind us why we came together." He paused as the crowd applauded. Lyra and Princess Cerilith sat together in the front row. Kale and Mira nestled between them. Both mothers glanced at Aaron with warm pride. Across the galaxy, news of the Alliance spread hope to planets long walled off by fear. Trade routes reopened, and new treaties formed. Earth's artists shared their music, while Alarian scientists offered healing technologies. Joint research stations appeared on lunar and orbital stations. In every project, the spirit of the two children guided the mission. Cooperation over conflict. Back on Alaria, the capital's skyline had grown with new towers and floating platforms. At the heart of the city stood the Unity Spire, a monument engraved with the bond symbols of both worlds. At its base, a plaque bore the words, "Through trust and compassion, we find our strength." Citizens often gathered there to celebrate festivals or simply to remember the moment when life's miracle changed everything. One evening, as twin moons rose high, Aaron visited the Unity Spire. He found Kale and Mira playing by its glowing gardens, chasing motes of light that danced in the air. Seralith joined him, her hand resting on his shoulder. Lyra came last, carrying a small basket of moonflowers. The four of them laughed together, human and Illyrian, mother and child. Seralith smiled at Aaron. "Look how far we've come," she said softly. Lyra nodded, all because of a single bond. Kale and Mira ran up to them, breathless with excitement. "Grandfather Aaron," they called, hugging him both. He knelt, wrapping them in his arms. In that tender moment, Aaron saw the true legacy of his mission. It was not battles won or treaties signed, but the soft laughter of two children united by love and trust. Around them, Alaria's skyline shimmered under the moons. Beyond, the stars stretched vast and welcoming. Commander Aaron Voss stood, holding Seralith and Lyra close. The future of two worlds shone bright in the children's eyes. And as they looked to the heavens, they knew humanity's place among the stars was secured, not by force, but by the simple power of life shared between hearts.